Welcome back to Checkmate, everyone. I'm Bishop, and today we're going to be reviewing. I'm going to be reviewing Gotham, episode 3. So, this episode was great. And not great, but this was an alright episode. It follows. They're following the exploits of a vigilante who's killing crooked people. It starts off. Gordon's introduced to a crooked cop who likes to beat up on thugs. I thought he was gonna be some mainstay character. I was like, shit, dude, we don't need this guy. He's like we don't need another Harvey, except for more of an asshole. We don't need this guy. I was really happy to find. I was really happy when this guy got murdered. This vigilante is going around murdering people with hot air balloons. But before I get into that, so there's also Gordon. The whole Gordon and Selena arc wraps up really quick. But I was correct, which it wasn't a long shot to jump. Selena Kyle already has her fucking powers. Say what? I don't know how I feel about that. Like, a part of me is intrigued because it's like, because it's like, what are they gonna do with that? Um, but then again, it's like, no, no, no. But we know she has her powers because she's talking to Gordon. Gordon gets her removed from a juvenile detention. From juvenile detention and brings her to the alley, and she explains, um, how she knows who the killer is. And Gordon doesn't believe her at first. He cuffs her to a railing because she says like, "Hey, I robbed this guy, and that's why I was in the alley watching." And the proof is I dumped the wallet in the sewer. So Gordon cuffs her to a railing and then goes in the sewer. He finds the wallet, but as soon as he finds the wallet, she picks the locks and she disappears. And you never see her. And like when he handcuffs her, he's like, "How did you see this guy? Like he was wearing a mask." She goes like he wasn't before he walked into the alley. He asks her, "It's a dark alley at the middle of the night." She goes, "I can see in the dark." It was good that Gordon was like, "I don't believe you," and she's like, "Oh, I can see in the dark," but so that's how we know Selena has her powers. She leaves after that whole scene with Gordon finding the wallet. She's just like, "Told you," and she dips. Um, Gordon also tells Selena that he promised Bruce that he would find his parents' killer. And I definitely think that's going to come back. That's going to come into play. And since I'm speaking about Bruce, so Bruce isn't eating. We find that out. I saw a review to where a person asked about his stages of grief, and I wasn't like, like I don't know how I felt about like the way they were showing it. Um, I happen to think grief can be materialized in different ways, and it's different with everybody. Um, I know there's like these formulas. It shows I don't judge shows off like the basis of the basis of off like people's formula with dealing with things, especially kids. I don't feel like there's any real there can be any real realism to them on any type of level. They just have to like as long as they paint it as believable in the boundaries of the show. So, with that being said, Bruce isn't eating. He has a couple scenes with Alfred. Alfred actually gets toned down some this episode, which I really, really appreciated. Allowed me to appreciate the actor who's playing him. I think he actually did a good job. The way they portrayed him in the other two episodes made me, as you guys know, it made me really standoffish with him. I didn't know how much I liked him. So, with this episode, it was well done. Even though he was still that same forceful, it was like less yelling and more concerned parent. Um, and he tries to he has a couple scenes where it like sows the roots. I know some people don't like the whole thing. We're like, hey, he's gonna be Batman. Hey, he's gonna be Batman. And some people want this show to like build off its own, but people have to understand there would be no show without it being related to Batman. The city of Gotham doesn't matter. Gordon doesn't matter. None of these characters matter without Batman. Yes, they're going to constantly reference it. You have to get over it. There's just no show without him. Point blank and period. So beyond that, it shows that he's he's looking at pictures of his parents' deaths, was kind of disturbing. And he's Alfred asks like, "What the hell is he doing?" And he's like looking for clues. Alfred's like, "You a detective now?" And he's just like, "If I find a clue, I am." And that's interesting. And there's something else that I'll go back to. It relates to the whole the case as a whole. So while this is going on, Gordon is looking for this guy who's hunting down and he's killing corrupt people. He starts off with someone who was stealing money from people, like a hedge fund type of guy who was stealing and like losing people's pensions and stuff. And the way the guy kills him is he attaches him to he goes up to him and he handcuffs him to these weather balloons and they fly in the air. So they find out that it's this guy who they originally think did it, stole these weather balloons. He stole these weather balloons and sold them off, and so this guy is going around, handcuffing him and like having him fly in the air. Very funny scene. One of the guys come back out because they're interrogating this guy. He's like, "Don't you know how these things work?" He's just like, they go in the air and then cold air hits them and then they pop. So an old woman dies because one of the balloons pops. The balloon of a crooked cop pops and it falls on this guy. So it's hilarious. And it's hilarious. Also, the crooked cop, they do something interesting. It's like, which I thought was cool. When the guy goes to get this crooked cop, this is a cop though. This cop beats the shit out of him at first. He's like, "What are you doing?" You can't. He beats the crap out of him, but the guy ends up getting him by his ankles and getting him handcuffing him to his ankles and getting him to lift off, which is really cool. I like that they showed that it's like, hey, it's not just a matter of like these guys are pushovers. And that ends up how Gordon finds out what he is, because the guy searches him, the crooked cop searches him and finds clues, but then he ends up getting left off when he pops and he falls on the old lady and they find his body, they find his name onto a piece of paper, and it turns out to be a social services guy. And that's how Gordon knows who it is, because that's the same guy who dropped Selena off to him in the beginning. But before I get on how this episode wraps up and my final feelings for it, two big things happen. A couple big things happen. Fish Mooney tells not Internal Affairs but Major Crimes that Gordon's the one that kills Cobblepot. Killed Penguin. Because that's under the assumption that's going on. Cobblepot comes back to Gotham, a different part of Gotham, and he starts working in a kitchen. And it's been really interesting. I didn't speak about him last week because I wanted to keep it short. These videos as short as possible, but fuck it, at this point they're just gonna be as long as they need to be. You see Cobblepot make his way back into Gotham. He needs to work at a kitchen. He gets turned away. The guy's like, "You didn't even have the right shoes." So it infers, because he's been killing people. Cobblepot kills this guy who he sees working at the kitchen, steals his shoes, and he gets the guy's job after he kills him and steals his shoes, because he's ruthless and he's trying to get his piece. So that's a little interesting part. You see him working in this kitchen with I think it's the number two crime family. I forgot their name, but that's where I think he is. That's why it's safe for him to be there in Gotham, because this is like the other side of town kind of shtick. So people won't recognize him. And that goes on. So Fish Mooney in an attempt to sell out Carmine, sells out Jim Gordon, saying that he killed Cobblepot a Carmine's orders to get major crimes, to get, to sell them out. Same thing essentially Cobblepot did to Fish. Fish just did to Carmine. So, like I said, I don't see her lasting more this season. She has that temper, and yeah, it's just gonna come back and bite her in the ass. I really like the way Jada Pinkett Smith plays her character. So it's gonna be sad to see her go, but it's you're that character. You're gonna go. So I wonder how she's gonna die this episode. I really don't want Penguin to kill her. I want Carmine to. I'm hoping for that. That'd be just, I want to see Carmine win at the end of the season so they can show what a boss he is. Yeah. Cause Fish Mooney's just unstable. It gets shown a couple of times. She has the guy who gets beat up for her last time gets killed. She has killed because he's getting all worrisome and stuff. And it's just interesting. So back to the end. The way this whole the theme of this episode is the corruption in Gotham, and the fact that after it's the connection that Cobblepot talked about in the first episode, that with the Wayne's murder, it's creating this vacuum, and it's gonna make everything fall in. Like, you have this house, and it's like the Waynes get murdered, and now it's going in on itself. That's what's going on. And it's been referenced a couple times in the show, and I really like that they're doing that. But this episode's theme was that this vigilante is now fuck it, dude. Everybody knows that Gotham is corrupt. The citizens feel it. And that's why this vigilante is getting all this attention. Bruce is following this vigilante in the news. And you see him a couple times, you see him watching some articles, watching the news on TV, and then reading something about it in the paper. And what's interesting is, and the reason why I waited, till the end of this video to speak about it is because, so at the end it turns out that it's this social worker, and he has this scene with Gordon, and he's just like, "Don't you see, man? They're all fucking corrupt, dude. We don't feel like there's anyone here, dude. It's none of these guys are looking out for the people, and we're all getting crushed on, and it was something has to be done." And then at the end, Gordon's like, "Yo, who is your next target?" And then Gordon's shocked because he tells him it doesn't matter. The guy tells him at the end, and that leaves an impact on Gordon. And then with Bruce, it matters because he's talking to Alfred about how Gordon captured him, and how Gordon captured him, and he goes, is something should have been done, Alfred asks essentially if he agreed with him, and he's just and Bruce just goes nah, he crossed that line, and that's why, and that and that just made him another criminal. He goes that just made him another criminal because he killed. But it shows that little, he doesn't necessarily think there's something wrong with vigilantism. It's the fact that he thinks there's something wrong with killing. When you cross that line, you become the criminal. So it's interesting. Like I said, I know there'll be people who hated it, who don't like that type of thing. It's gonna be in this show. People better get used to it. And if they don't like it, I feel like some of the more, I guess, hardcore fans are going to drift away. More of the comic book fans, and I guess that's just the way that falls. On another note, before I wrap this all up, so Major Crimes, the woman who works in Major Crimes, out of these two people who do are the two people you see, who used to have a relationship with Jim's fiance, goes to see her. You find out Jim's fiance was some type of drug dealer, was some type of drug addict, and that the woman was an alcoholic, and that their relationship was essentially just toxic. And you get some more information resolve it around that. I don't know, I guess she was smoking a joint because they were getting high, and she's like, yes. And it looked like a cigarette, but it was because she says you get high, it's oh, I guess it was a joint, and it was You know, I mean, like it's one of those things. Like it makes me wonder if she knows. It does go to show she seems to have the ability, and I'm not saying it's an ability, but her character knows when people are lying to her. Um, so she's comforting Jim at the end. And Jim's talking about like how the case really affected him, how the fact that like the guy was just like, it doesn't matter who's going after. People don't feel safe. Like, but we can't cross this line. She asked them. She asked him like, "Would you?" And like Gordon's like, "Do you think I could?" I like the relationship they're building between Jim and his fiance. I really do. Is where I'm going with this. Because even though the major crimes woman is like, even though the major crimes woman goes to Barbara and is like, Jim killed this guy. Like I know, and she believes her, but she knows Jim. She's like, no, you know. So, the way the episode ends with the big shocker is like after this conversation they have, Penguin comes to the door and he's like, "Hey, old friend." So like now the cat's really out of the bag. It's going to be interesting. They had a little preview for next episode. Jim's gonna go ham, like, "Yo, you got to get the fuck out of here," because he didn't kill Cobblepot for two reasons. Um, he faked Cobblepot's death for two reasons. One, because he's a good guy and he didn't want to kill, and he doesn't. That's just who Jim Gordon is. And two, he had to make it seem like he was going to die, like he killed them because these people said they were going to go after his girl, and like they're serious about that. And Jim can't even trust his partner. He's had to question his partner in every single one of these past episodes. Jim has questioned his partner. Is like, "Yo, would you kill me?" I think it's going to be interesting. I think maybe that dynamic will kind of end, and they'll always just have this good cop, bad cop routine. But that question, Jim isn't stupid, like, even though last episode he fucking tells her, and maybe this just wasn't as important why he let it go. But so overall, it was interesting. That ending is really what like brought it back up. I guess this is the pace it's gonna go at. I don't know how many more surprises. Because I'm gonna be honest, the episode it was all right. It was okay. So grading spectrum, I'll give this episode. Um, I'll give it a B. Wasn't like great, but definitely wasn't a bad episode. It was good. It was very good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that's my review for Gotham episode 3. I'm Bishop. Thank you for watching Checkmate, and I'll see you later.